Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told out of VSTAR, and today, between the release of Brilliant Stars, or Starbirth over in Japan, and a few promos, we have found ourselves with 8 revealed confirmed Pokemon VSTAR, and I think that makes a good time to do our first ever ranking of all the VSTARs. And given that the other day I ranked all the VMAXs and there were 66 of them, the idea of ranking VSTARs when only 8 exist makes me very happy indeed. Although some of these we don't have English scans of, and that makes me very sad indeed. Hey ho, ladies and gentlemen, can't win them all. So in at number 8, and I feel good about this, from Brilliant Stars, it's Whimsicott. When I looked at this, for the first time, I told you it was my least favourite of them. And we've now seen a bunch of others, and my opinion hasn't changed. I don't think it's an out-and-out garbage card, but I do think it's generally a bit rubbish. For free energy, 1 psychic, 2 colourless, you do 160 damage, and your opponent cannot play Pokemon tools or special energy from their hand during their next turn. And on the one hand, there is a decent amount of potential here, because decks that rely on special energy or Pokemon tools can be completely shut down by this, and that's clearly fun and wonderful. But firstly, the energy cost is kind of awkward. I mean, you can use Shadow Rider Calyrex, of course, but then again, a lot of the time, I'd rather just use Shadow Rider Calyrex. And honestly, the fact that it does 160 kind of offends me here. Because we all know at this stage, I've mentioned this in so many videos, we know that 180 is enough to get those weak support Pokemon, things like Crobat V and things like Kricketune V. But if you're not even hitting 180, nah. You don't do enough damage. And blocking special energy and tools is good, but it's also very specific. As for the attack, the VSTAR power, 1 psychic energy, and it does 60 to one of your opponent's Pokemon for each energy attached to this Pokemon. But firstly, to do enough damage to really make a difference, you've got to have at least free energy on there, probably more. And secondly, if you put more than free energy on there, then you're in that situation that I absolutely detest, and that is the fact that I'm putting energy on just for my once per game VSTAR power. Remember, VSTAR power is once per game, regardless of how many VSTARs you've got on the board. And that's just, I don't like it, frankly, ladies and gentlemen. I don't think it's good enough. Sorry. In at number 7, we've got ourselves Glaceon. Now, of course, Glaceon just got released like last weekend in its own promo set. And it's about to be released this coming weekend over in Japan in its own promo set, which is kind of nice. The thing is, there is potential here, but I don't know how great it is. Free energy, 180 stops and retreating is fine, but it's not stunning. Yes, you'll get those support Pokemon like Crobat and Kricketune, which is lovely. And you'll be 2-hit KOing anything while stopping and retreating, which is lovely, but it's not an exciting attack like some of the others have. Then free energy, 220, and get immunity next turn. And bearing in mind, right, we got stuff like Frostmoth, which will accelerate the energy, or Frostlass, or Melanie. So we've got ways to accelerate the energy, and that's rather lovely. My problem is, as powerful as this can be, and it really can, it can also be played around. Because the problem is, it prevents all damage done to this Pokemon. But if your opponent plays something like a Boss's Orders, then you don't get that immunity anymore. And that's a problem. And because it can be played around, that's why I pop it in at number 7. Although I do like it, incidentally, it's a cool card. The only one I really don't like is Whimsicott. In at number 6, we've got Lucario, the one that has just been revealed as coming in its own box in April, and over in Japan, it is coming in its own deck, which is kind of lovely. Interestingly enough, do remember that our Lucario VSTAR Premium Collection does come with the full art Lucario V, and that's a nice touch. And Lucario's got a bit of potential here. Lucario comes along with an attack for a fighting double colourless. It does 240 to a Pokemon V. I mean, it does 120 otherwise, but don't do it, alright? And you want it KOing Pokemon V, and you'll get weak V-Stars, one hitting for weakness, if you do a bit of extra damage, etc. Which is nice. It's not stunning, but there's enough that you'll KO here, and again, against Pokemon V, not V-Star, you are rolling here. But I'm worried about the energy. Like, in terms of accelerating fighting energy, we don't have too much. We did have that Gritty Pickaxe card, which is coming in the Lucario deck, and that's nice. Let's look at the top card of your deck. If it's a fighting energy, you attach it, otherwise you draw it. But that's going to be a little bit awkward to use. And we've got B, which is one of those, supporter card, lets you discard the top 5 cards of your deck, attach any energy, fighting or otherwise, to one of your bench fighting Pokemon. But it's awkward to accelerate the energy. It ain't that easy. Now, for 2 energy, fighting colorless, the VSTAR power does 70 damage for each energy attached to all of your opponent's Pokemon in play. And I really like this, because 2 energy is way more payable. And also, your opponent, is going to be in an awkward situation where they can not attach energy to try and slow you down, but that's a win for you. So I'm totally okay with that. Or you punish them for attaching energy. Either way, sounds good to me. In at number 5, we've got Charizard, and I have a tendency to overrate big Charizard cards with big numbers on, but I do think this one could be good. Explosive Fire for free energy does 130, but if it's got any damage counters on, it does 100 more damage, which basically gets a KO on pretty much any Pokemon V. It's very much like Lucario, but it does the extra damage to anything, and we've got that Magma Basin Stadium card that lets you attach a fire energy from your discard to one of your benched fire Pokemon, and then take 2 damage counters, which means you'll get the energy on more easily, and you'll have the damage on to do the extra. So I do think if you compare these side by side, this first attack, Charizard's just better. Just a better card. Now, the V-Star power is Star Blaze, 320 damage for 4 energy, discarding 2 of them. But again, you're discarding 2 energy, you then attach a 3rd next turn, and you're back to using Explosive Fire. The thing is, 320, that's at a stage where we're one-hit KOing VMAXs. And I know that over the next couple of years, the power of VMAXs is going to be vastly diminished as they start to rotate out, because it does look like we're not getting really any more of those. But my point is, we do have them at the moment. And so, this is good. There are very few cards out there that can get one-hit KOs on Pokemon VMAX. This is one of them, so it's got to be something you're considering. In at number 4, we've got Shaman, and Shaman is one that I feel I might like more than most people, and I am totally okay with it. And the thing is, I think it's got one of the worst V-Star powers we've seen. I really do. Star Bloom, during your turn, you may heal 120 damage from each of your benched grass Pokemon. Firstly, healing 120 is not that impressive. Not in the format we're in, where, your opponent hits you for 240, you heal 120, and then they still KO you. Like, with most Pokemon around at the moment, are hitting like 220, 240, around that range. So healing 120 is not stopping a 2-hit KO, so who cares? And it only heals grass Pokemon, don't like it. But I absolutely adore Revenge Blast. For a grass and a colorless energy, which is very cheap and easy to play, 120 damage plus 40 more for each prize card your opponent's taken. Well, by the time they've taken 1, you're getting single prize Pokemon. By the time they've taken 2, you're getting weak Pokemon V. By the time they've taken 3, you're getting all Pokemon V. By the time they've taken 4, you're getting V Stars. And by the time they've taken 5, you're getting V Maxes. And I love Shaman V Star. I think it's absolutely brilliant. It's not the first Revenge Shaman we've ever seen, and the previous Revenge Shaman were good, ladies and gentlemen. They were really, really good. We had the Shaman EX from Next Destinies, which was 30 plus 30 for each prize, but in a format with much lower HP. Fun fact, I played this in a Verizon Genesect deck at Nationals one year, and I forgot to play a single prize Pokemon in the deck. I made the deck on the morning of the tournament because I didn't have anything I really wanted to play, and I wanted to prove that anyone could play Verizon Genesect successfully, and I went like 4-3, I went positive with a bad list, but I forgot to play a single prize Pokemon, which meant that I could never, ever do the maximum amount of damage with Revenge Blast because my opponent couldn't take 5 prizes. That was dumb, quite frankly. And I still ended with a positive record, and I think I proved my point about Verizon Genesect. Weirdly, the last Nationals I ever played before I started casting them. Hey-ho. Point is, that was a good card, and I think this one will be as well. Even though I don't like the VSTAR power, and it feels weird putting it in the top half of a bad VSTAR power, but I love that revenge attack. Speaking of grass Pokemon, in at number 3, we've got Leafeon. I adore Leafeon, and Leafeon's basically the opposite of Shaymin. Shaymin love the attack, hate the VSTAR power. Leafeon love the VSTAR power, don't like the attack. Free energy, 180, take 30 less next turn. That 30 less is mostly going to be irrelevant. And don't get me wrong, there will be games where it's relevant. But if your opponent's 2-hit KOing, it's not going to make a huge difference. You know, they'll have to do 160 to 2-hit KO. It's not the end of the world. Most Pokemon can. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it will never help. It will sometimes help. It will sometimes save you. But with the numbers that Pokemon are doing at the moment, I don't think it falls into that range where it's going to be super helpful. And 180 does get those weak support Pokemon. We're not embarrassed like we were with Whimsicott, but that's the best I can say. But the VSTAR power is an ability Ivysaur, and it's gusting. That's all it is. It's gusting. The thing is, and I've had a bunch of people say, well, see, it's just Umbreon VMAX. Umbreon VMAX already does this. And no, it doesn't. You see, Umbreon VMAX, you have to draw into it when you need it. And don't get me wrong, that's still super helpful. Now, instead of drawing into boss's orders, I can draw into boss's orders, or Umbreon, or any search card that gets me Umbreon. It's still really good in that regard. However, I have to draw into it when I need it. The thing about Leafeon V-Star's Ivysaur VSTAR power ability is, it's just there. During your turn, you may switch one of your opponent's bench Pokemon with their active. So if Leafeon's sitting on your bench, you're just ready to use it. And your opponent has to play something like Path to the Peak to turn off abilities, or just KO Leafeon to stop you. Incidentally, either of those will work against Umbreon and things of that nature as well. So it means it doesn't matter what my opponent does. If they play a Marnie, or if they play Hand Disruption and get rid of my entire hand, it doesn't matter. Unless they turn off abilities, and some decks can, but most decks can't, that Leafeon is just sitting there ready. And that's why I love Leafeon so much. Because in the mid to late game, when I really need gusting, it's there. And I don't need to draw into anything. I don't need any combination of cards. It's literally just sitting there ready to go. That's why I love Leafeon so much. But incidentally, I think Leafeon is a cut above the rest of the list, but I think the top two are pretty clear. In at number 2, we've got Arceus. And I was playing around the other day on Japanese Amazon, looking at cheap singles. And I actually picked up the other V-Stars from Starbirth really cheap. Like 2 or 3 quid cheap. Whimsicott, Shaymin, Charizard, all of the 3 of them. I paid something like 7 quid for the trio. It was ridiculous. I couldn't do that for Arceus V-Star. Arceus V-Star was going to cost about double the other 3 combined. It is far and away the most expensive of the ones to try and buy over in Japan. And it ain't because Arceus is more popular than Charizard, because he ain't. Because it's a really good card. Now, I do think the best thing about Arceus is the ability Starbirth, the V-Star power. During your turn, you may search your deck for up to 2 cards and put them into your hand. Firstly, searching any 2 cards is absolutely nuts. We've seen cards like Twins and Teammates in the past that have powered entire decks because they let you search for any 2 cards, and searching for any 2 cards is nuts. But also, it's just there. And this is exactly what I just told you with Leafeon. It's just there. You play Arceus, and at some point in the future, it's just there. And it doesn't matter what your opponent does unless they turn off abilities or something like Path to the Peak. It doesn't matter how much they hand disrupt you. All you need to do is just be ready, play it, and go. And that's the difference, ladies and gentlemen. And it's absolutely redonkulous. Absolutely redonkulous. But it's got a really nice attack as well. The attack for free colorless energy does 200 and searches your deck for up to 3 basic energy and attaches them to your Pokemon V in any way you like. So you're dealing enough damage to KO weak Pokemon V, while also accelerating multiple energy, and we've seen this, right? We saw on Pikachu and Zekrom how good it is to deal damage while accelerating energy. And we saw on Arceus and Alga and Palkia how good it is to deal damage while accelerating energy. Here, we're dealing a bunch of damage while accelerating energy. It is very much in the vein of those cards in terms of the attack, not the extra prizes, obviously. And it's got an amazing V-Star power, possibly the best one we've seen, probably the best one we've seen. I love it, ladies and gentlemen. I think it is absolutely flat out stone cold brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Which means, by process of elimination, number one must be Darkrai. Now Darkrai's weird, because we know that 4 of these are coming in Brilliant Stars. We know that LEAFFON and Glaceon have just come out in their own boxes. We know Lucario is getting its own box. Darkrai is the only one we don't know exactly how it's coming out in English, although we expect it to be in the set after Brilliant Stars. But that does mean we ain't getting this till May. This will be, of the ones we've seen, the latest one we get. And I feel very strongly this is number one. I think Arceus is a stunning card. I think Darkrai blows it out of the water. Now, it's actually got a very similar V-Star power, but instead of searching your deck for any 2 cards, it searches your discard for any 2 item cards. So I don't think it's quite as good, but I do think grabbing any 2 items in the late game is going to be absolutely stunning, and I think it is going to help amazingly. Or grabbing 2 items in the early game to get yourself a faster setup or whatever it might be, I think it's a great V-Star power. And again, you can just have this on board and wait till you need to use it. In that regard, it's brilliant. But as well as having this, it's also got an attack which could end up being the best deck in the game. Because for 2 energy minimum, you deal 30 damage plus 30 more free darkness energy attached to your Pokemon. It's very much like the Darkrai from Breakpoint, or in fact, exactly like Greninja and Zoroark. It's phenomenal. And the thing is, it's not the attack. We saw the other day Raichu V has this similar kind of attack. And I'm not loving Raichu V. The difference here is that you've got all the support. So you've got the Galarian Moltres that when you bench it, you attach an extra 2 energy from your hand. And you're doing damage based on the energy on the field, so you don't need to do anything. Benching Galarian Moltres is an extra 60 damage for every Darkrai for the rest of the game. Then you've got Galarian Moltres V, which lets you attach an energy from discard to it once during your turn. Does need to be borne in mind that that is limited to once per turn, regardless of how many Moltres you've got out. But that's fine by me, ladies and gentlemen, because that's still an extra 30 damage, and that adds up every turn. Oh yeah, and they're reprinting Dark Patch. But because of Darkrai's ability, that could be 6 Dark Patch in a game. So if I've got 6 Dark Patch, plus my Galarian Moltres, plus my Galarian Moltres V, you better believe I am confident I'm going to be KOing Pokemon V and V-Star and maybe even V-Max pretty gosh darn quickly. And I think Darkrai is the only card on this list that's got an absolutely stunning attack and an absolutely stunning ability. I think Arceus has got the ability and comes close with the attack, but I do think it's a clear number 2. I'm not feeling 100% about this whole list. I do think there's some stuff you can mix around, but I think Darkrai, Arceus, Leafeon 1, 2, and 3, and Whimsicott coming up in the end, I think is right. But I want to hear from you guys. Which are your favourite V-Star? Which are the ones you're going to be going after? Which do you want to pick up? Which are you going to be playing? I don't know. Tell me anything you want. Just remember the rule. If you're going to put a card higher, you've got to drop a card. And if you've got to drop a card, you need to put a card up to replace it. Let me know in the comment section. Go nuts! Be nice! And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWasi, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.